Hey everybody. I'm your host, John Myers, live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey everybody. Gotta have my notes. It's John Myers from the KICKER UnMasked studios. Gotta have my notes. Alternator. Hey everybody. We have fun. Hey everybody. Hit like and subscribe. Right here, right now. It's John Myers. We like to give stuff away. Alternator. Post some more pictures. We got to thank Steve and Becky live from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Don't forget Texas Roadhouse right here, right now. Hey everybody. Don't forget right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey everybody. Had a great dinner tonight. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. Had a great dinner tonight. So, hey everybody. So, housekeeping. Had a great dinner tonight. So, alternator. Housekeeping. Housekeeping. 7:30 on Tuesday night. Housekeeping. From the KICKER UnMasked studios. Housekeeping. Right here, right now. Hey everybody. So, it's John Myers. Hey everybody. It's John Myers from the KICKER UnMasked studios. Hey everybody. From the KICKER UnMasked studios. It's John Myers. Right here, right now. We have got a great show tonight. Hey everybody. We have got a great show tonight. It's John Myers. Hey everybody. Right here. I know you can. Hey everybody, it is Tuesday night right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We are coming to you live from the UnMasked studios. We are going to have a lot of fun tonight, and let's recap a little bit. We had a lot of fun last week. We had Kyle here last week, Kyle Rutherford, otherwise known as Clippo, talking about his SBL build. It was a great show. I unfortunately was in Salt Lake City dealing with some of our car builder friends there and having fun, so I was on the road. Yes, I do have 2 jobs. This isn't the only thing I do, but hey, it's a lot of fun, so that's why we keep doing it. So guys, make sure you hang out for a little while, tune in. If you like what you see tonight, if you're new to the show, make sure you hit like and subscribe, tell your friends. If you've got suggestions for new shows, new ideas, please let us know. We always like to see that. And of course, we're always doing giveaways. You guys always know, and no, it's not rigged. I mean, we got a lot of our good friends back here, that are tuning in. I mean, Andy's here from Living Loud. I mean, we couldn't do this without him. We got Bobby Burkett. I've seen a lot of good guys out there. El Fuego. So thank you guys for tuning in as always. I'm still looking for Ashy Larry. Didn't see him or Baba yet, but they're probably in there. I probably just missed their post. But thank you guys for tuning in, making sure we have a good show. And as always, like I say, we love to give stuff away. So if you want to see what we're going to give away, go ahead and pull out your computer, log into KickerUMweekly.com. That's KickerUM/Kicker/UMweekly.com. And we're going to tell you right now what we're going to give away. The third place winner is going to receive the green gray. It's green gray, and it depends on if you're colorblind or not. A lot of us redheaded guys are colorblind anyway, just red-green colorblind. So third place is going to get the KICKER tumbler. You're going to get the KICKER koozie and the KICKER t-shirt. The second place winner is going to get the EB400 wireless earbuds, which are weather resistant. And of course, the grand prize winner is going to get that BF100. That is that Bluetooth waterproof speaker. So we're going to have a great show, but today's a little bit different. I think we're kind of I don't know if we're really going big time, but we decided to shake it up a little bit. And we have in the studio with us, I think this is like a first. We've had guests before, but we're going to consider this a live studio audience. So we got a whole group of guys over here from, I would say, from all over the country, but we've got some Canadians that snuck down across the border unbeknownst to Border Patrol. So it's going to be a good show. These guys will probably be heckling me from over to my right, which is probably to your left. So if you see me like glaring to the side, that's because somebody said something that I didn't want to hear, but it's probably true anyway. So, but it's going to be a fun show, and they don't know it yet, but we're going to bring them onto camera with some pretty interesting things we're going to do. So, yep, you guys signed up for this. It's going to be interesting, so we're going to find out. So make sure you guys tune in. I got my special guest here. If you guys don't know who that is, this is Herkimer. For those of you guys that do know, I've been with the company almost 27 years. He was here when I started. So he used to attend all the events. He used to set up on the rafters of our display and look down at people and really cause a lot of chaos. And I got a really good friend of mine that's a retired police lieutenant. He had one of his buddies came through here for a tour. And he mentioned the fact that he had to come in here one night because they thought there was a prowler. The alarm was going off, and he almost shot him because he was actually sitting in the corner in the dark. And that is an honest-to-God true story. So we're going to take a break, and I don't know, we might replace him with a live body. Hopefully got Jacob standing in the wings that's going to take over Herkimer's spot. But guys, tune in just a minute or so, and we're going to get right to the show. We're going to talk to you a lot about all the different materials you can build speakers out of and why you might choose what you choose. So it could be an interesting show. I know I'm going to have a lot of fun. So see you in a minute.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Music is my passion, my livelihood, and it's in my DNA. My pals at KICKER Marine Audio gave me a chance to take the music, what I love and listen to, at home, on stage, and in the car, onto the water. Hi, this is Jason Bonham, and I want to say a big thank you to my friends at KICKER Audio for inspiring the songs and the stories behind the music that inspires America. Go overboard! This is your time.
What do you think? Suitable replacement? You're going to have to talk. You can't just stand there and hold the speaker the whole time. So
I mean, I know Herkimer doesn't have any hair, but I tried to cover that fact.
Well, I don't have much, so it's not much different anyway. Yeah. So we always got to go there. If you guys want to know what's going on, if you guys get on the KICKER Facebook page and you scroll down to where it says more, and then you can click on events, you can see other things that we're doing, other places we're going. As always, we're participating with the American Flat Track and the Progressive Flat Track, the AMA. They're going to be in Castle Rock doing a great event this weekend. Dune Fest. Now, we're not actually participating in Dune Fest, but we got a good dealer up there, Brad's Cartoons, up in Winchester Bay, Oregon. That actually starts today. That is a 5-day show, and unfortunately, I haven't got up there to see that one yet. But so if you want to get up and see a lot of fun in the dunes up there and see some KICKER product, Brad's Cartoons, they're going to be up there, like taking care of the KICKER banner for us, and always bass wars. We've got bass wars going on. We've got Birmingham, Biloxi. They're going on all over. So if you guys like bass and like to see a lot of the competition vehicles, check out our website. You know that. Like I say, just click on more, then go down to events. We got bass wars all over the country. So this is a pretty war-torn country when it comes to bass wars.
I guess it is.
Those shows are a lot of fun. If you've never been to them, and, until recently I hadn't been to one until I went to Slamology, a year and a half ago. And that was a real eye-opener because, it's changed a lot from, the 80s and 90s when we first started doing this, and which is probably why this thing exists right now.
Oh, absolutely.
We getting back into that game and, got to show people that, hey, we haven't forgotten our roots, that, hey, we just, we're cooking up something special for you guys. We've also got another event called Knowledge Fest. If you guys are KICKER dealers or work for a KICKER dealer, this is going to be in Dallas. It's going to be this month from the 25th to the 27th. I don't get to go to that one either.
Nope. Actually, I'm going to be there.
Yeah, you're going solo, I think, on this one.
Yeah, my first solo event. I'm going to be doing the trainings for us down at Knowledge Fest. We're talking integration, all things integration. So if you're there, come to the training and tune in. I'd love to say hi to you.
Yeah, in fact, I was supposed to go with him, and he was going to like mentor me, but unfortunately, I've got to go somewhere else.
Where you going, John?
So this is so cool. If you guys don't believe it, we deal with a lot of countries around the world. I think it's 60 plus different countries. I get the fortunate, pleasure of going to South Africa again. So if you guys, some of the pictures we featured on the show have been some from South Africa. Those guys do a heck of a good job down there. They do some great installs, and it's always a good time going out and seeing, how people do it differently, in other countries, because, we have our own style of doing things. And I used to say, 10, 15 years ago that some of the other countries were 10 years behind us. What we were doing 10 years ago is what they're doing now. But these guys have really shortened that gap up. There's some really, really cool installs. In fact, I'm going to feature one at the end of the show that's from a place that I didn't expect to see this type of install. So you don't even know what it is. It's actually going to be pretty cool.
Idea.
So that is going to be a lot of fun. So the meat and potatoes of the show is going to be dinner. No, that was Texas Roadhouse, wasn't it? You missed it.
No, that wasn't Texas Roadhouse for me. I had Smokin' Joe's Barbecue.
Yeah, all these guys got to go to Smokin' Joe's Barbecue, and that is like the biggest barbecue sandwich I've ever seen. I mean, it's got to be over a pound of barbecue meat on a sandwich.
Humongous, man.
It's like just absurd, but it's awesome. So we like our barbecue here, but now we just had Texas Roadhouse. We had steak, so. As always, we got a great crew. We got Steven behind the camera back here. He's going to be manning the camera and moving it around, and we're going to give him a workout tonight. We've got JW in the back. He's running the console along with Ernie, and none other than Bill Frog back there. And I can't even tell who's in the shadows on the left, but I don't think he's a regular.
He's a new guy.
Yep, he's an NG. Oh, he's got a job now. They put him to work. So you show up to Kicker for a tour, and they put you to work. And at very least, they put you on stage over here. So these guys have been here as part of an event we do about 4 times a year, where we invite our dealers to come in and see what we do and what we kind of call drinking the Kicker Kool-Aid and having a good time. Tell them some of the things that they've done so far. And they're not done yet. They got a whole nother day tomorrow.
Oh, man. So far, we got to see all of R&D, talk to them a little bit about what we do here, about our 39 employees that we have in research and development. And if you guys out there watching don't know, we're a very R&D-focused company. After that, we went and we saw our QA department. We saw some of the new labs that we're building for in-house testing.
Does QA stand for questionable actions?
No, it stands for quality assurance.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
But it depends who you're talking to.
Well, with me, it's questionable.
Yeah. But and then we went upstairs for some trainings and learning a little bit more about Kicker. So
a lot of fun. So we got actually kind of a fun event for them tomorrow, which I've never heard of. Tell them where we're going to take them tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Oh, there's a place in Oklahoma City called Chicken and Pickle, and apparently it's a pickleball court, but I'm really not sure what.
You guys aware of this? They're like shaking their heads. They're dying to go just to see what the heck it really is.
We're going to make you guys play sports, but,
Group participation.
Yeah.
It's all about what it is. So, that being said, we got a little bit more. And, if you guys are Kicker dealers out there, if you want to come see the Kicker facility, go get a job at a Kicker retailer. Every time we go to these stores, and it doesn't matter where we're at in the country and literally, around the world, every time we go into one of our retailers, usually the first thing is, do you know anybody looking for a job? So if you guys think we're having fun and living the life of luxury, and well, we're not, but we're just having fun anyway. But if you guys want to get into car audio, if you're not working for a retailer, these guys are starving for good help. And, there's good training available. So if you want to start a career in automotive electronics, and you want to get twisted and weird like we are, go out and seek your local retailer, get a job, and work your way up coming out to see us on an all-expense-paid trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, absolutely love it. So that being said, you guys feel free to ask questions. JW's going to bring those up on the screen for me as he sees something interesting. But we need to talk about speaker materials. That's kind of what the show is all about. Why do we make speakers out of what we make them out of? So there really is no absolute magic bullet. This combination works every time. There's so many different materials out there that you can make them out of. There's so many pros and cons. It really depends on the particular acoustic engineer, what he's, what he likes, and of course you've got the acoustic engineer designing the sound of the speakers. You've got the mechanical engineers that are designing the performance of the speaker. So those guys actually have to work together, because it doesn't matter if it sounds great, if it doesn't last, it's not going to be a very effective product. And that's kind of one of the things we're all about, is having a product that, is going to perform, year in and year out, which kind of brings me to the first material. That was kind of a neat little segue, and I just created that as we went. So we're on a roll now, as I told these guys earlier.
Like they say.
Yep, you can tell you're on a roll when you have butter on your pants. But so
that's just the Texas Roadhouse, John.
Yeah, I know. It was apple cinnamon butter too. I'm a regular butter guy. Just don't flavor it. Just give it to me straight. I can take it. Butter is a food group, by the way.
I guess so.
At least when you're me. So, first speakers made. What were they made out of? For the cone material. I mean,
pretty sure it was paper, wasn't it, John?
It was probably stone, but yeah. Paper was one of the most common materials that speakers are made of. And I got to assume, it was long before my time. I mean, that had to have been like early 1900s.
Yeah, and so actually, I can speak on this a little bit, and I may have mentioned.
You were there?
Well, yeah, I grew up in the 1940s, but no, I may have mentioned it on one of the other Unmasks back when I first started coming on the show. But I actually work on and restore tube radios, and most of them are from the 30s and 40s, but they all pretty much have paper cones and even paper surrounds. The surround is just a little bit of folded paper that connects to the basket of the speaker. There weren't cloth surrounds or any other material on the surround. It was just a really simple, rudimentary loudspeaker. And something interesting that's kind of changed from speakers back then to now is that those speakers had field coils and voice coils. So the field coil was generally like a 300 ohm or a 600 ohm coil that was actually a part of the power supply for the radio. And that field coil would create the magnetic field that the voice coil uses to move up and down in. So speaker design has come a long way since the 1940s.
So it's basically like an electromagnetic speaker.
Pretty much.
It didn't have a fixed magnetic structure, it was electromagnetic.
As far as I know, yeah, that's pretty interesting. But I've found a lot of those working on different radios, and a lot of the smaller speakers did have like ferrite magnets, neodymium magnets, but yeah, as far as I know, that a lot of them were field coil, and the big console radio that I have in my house uses a field coil. So pretty cool stuff.
Awesome. So if you've got one of those old radios that's in a lab and you're trying to figure out things, is that a test tube radio? Just checking.
One of John's dad jokes.
Yeah, but they don't quit. They don't get any better either. So, yeah, paper was one of the the first materials. Obviously, the surround and the cones. I remember, growing up in our house in the basement, my dad had one of those old speakers, like a 12-inch speaker, and literally it was the cone and the surround that kind of rolled the paper at the edge, and that was the surround. But paper, obviously has some great qualities. It's very affordable. It's light. It's fairly durable, but it does have some downsides to it as well, and one of them is moisture resistance. So we all know what happens when you get paper wet, it pretty much turns to mush. So when we started looking at when talking with Steve, we introduced the car audio separate line back in 1986. And one of the things that Steve did first was he started making speakers out of polypropylene, which is kind of a plastic type material. And one of the reasons for that is that the durability as far as the moisture, because the automotive environment, you've got humidity, you have heat. It's not like climate controlled like you have in a house or an apartment. So it's got to have a material that's going to be long lasting. I don't know if you've ever pulled a radio out of some of these older cars, like some of the older GM paper cone speakers, and the cones are just completely warped. Which obviously that's not good. And then they can start making the voice coil rub as they change their shape and just disintegrate.
Well, not only that, but completely warped, and the surround is totally rotted off the speaker as well. And they've got foam surrounds, old rubber surrounds, they're just gone. Yep,
and we'll definitely get into the surrounds here, after we get through some of the cones. But there's so many different materials you can make speakers out of, and we obviously have not even tapped them all. Even with current technology, they're always inventing other things, which will be kind of cool when we talk about it with tweeters. There's a new material that's don't even want to let the cat out of the bag, but I'm really hoping we can start using this material pretty soon. Yeah, actually, Steven's up there writing notes to the crowd over here. Applause, laughter, act like you're alive. You are. There we go. A live studio audience. See what I got to work with here, guys.
Oh, this is awesome.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So this may have to be a regular thing. We may have to do this more often, because it is a lot more fun when there's people around to talk to than just talking to a dead camera. And it even helps when Steven's back there. Just as long as there's someone to talk to, and at least to moan at some of my bad jokes. So, But yeah, paper has been very popular, and talking about the L7X woofer up here, this has a paper cone.
That it does.
Now, when it comes to paper cones, I mean, obviously there's advantage, there's disadvantages. Now, we start talking about cone thickness, and all this kind of works together. It's all part of the mechanics of the speaker and the design and how they're all laid out. But let's just take a piece of styrofoam. It's 2 inches thick, it's a foot wide and 4 feet long. That's pretty light. So if I take that and try to bend it, it doesn't bend very easy. I mean, because it's fairly thick. If I take that same material and I just take a bar or something, I flatten the center of it, it's got a very easy spot to bend. It's very weak. So even though paper is not the strongest material, there's other ways to manufacture the cone to make it even stronger, and that's what we've done on the X woofer here, and that's what we call a non-pressed paper pulp cone. So that basically means that paper is pulp. It's like mush that they flatten and they dry out and it turns into paper. What they'll actually do with a non-pressed paper pulp cone is they'll actually spread this pulp material over a form and they'll just let it dry. They won't compress it to flatten it out. So it's got the same weight, but it's got a lot more thickness and a lot more rigidity so the cone doesn't flex. And I suppose we ought to make that comparison too, that really does not matter what the cone material is made out of. As long as the cone doesn't flex or something weird happens like that, it's going to sound good. And one of the other questions is what sounds better, polypropylene or paper or some of the other materials. And it's just like we talk about it when it comes to enclosures. If the enclosure is changing the sound, it's not good. I mean, that's not what they're there for. Same thing, if the cone of the speaker changes the sound, I mean, especially if it changes it for the worse, I mean, it's not supposed to change the sound. All this device is supposed to do, it's called a transducer. It changes electrical energy into mechanical energy. It's not there to color it, to change it, or anything else. So as long as it doesn't change the sound, it does a good job, it doesn't really matter what the cone material's made out of. But they're all, a lot of the cone materials are cosmetic. I mean, they do it because, hey, it looks cool. It looks cool, it's got to be worth more, right? So not only, you start talking about paper cones, you talk about polypropylene. We'll get into some of the other, I actually got one up here that's got a couple other materials. It's got 3 other materials built into it, which is really cool. But what you do to the polypropylene is also just as important as the material. So with polypropylene, it's basically a material that you can change its qualities by adding things to it. We've used, like carbon fiber, fibers. We've done fiber impregnated, polypropylene. We've done, all types of different materials. Mica impregnated polypropylene. So you can use different materials to make it either lighter, heavier, more rigid, whatever you want. But polypropylene is a really interesting material because it is a plastic. And what can you do with plastic that you can't do with papers? You can form it.
And doesn't it come as basically little beads that get
that's one of the ways they manufacture it for transport, so it can be changed in many forms. It's like little beads, like grains of rice are a little bit bigger, and that's why it's shipped, because a small material like that can be easily run through any type of conveying system to get it from the hopper to the mold, whatever it needs to be. It's not big chunks or slabs. So the cool thing about a polypropylene cone, there really are 2 different ways to make a cone material, and you can literally make them any shape you want, and the shape a lot of times really denotes the strength of the speaker. But if you take a material, and we're going to call it vacuum forming. You guys ever seen the plastic containers that all your little Hot Wheels and all your toys come in? That's a vacuum molded, basically blister box. So you can make a speaker with vacuum forming, where you make a form, the shape of the speaker you want. Then you take the sheet of plastic, you put it in an oven. It looks like a big pizza oven. I wish we had a picture of our vac former in back, because we actually form about up to 0.375 inch thick plastic we actually can form with that vac former, which is exactly what it sounds like. You heat the plastic up to a material where it's soft enough. Then you've got this mold that's underneath, and you drape this plastic over it, and then you apply vacuum, which sucks the air out between the polypropylene or the plastic, whatever type of material it happens to be, and it sucks it down to that form. And you can make a lot of really cool cones. In fact, we still do prototype.
Yeah. So if you guys are familiar with our old VSS kits and our current subwoofer kits that you can purchase from like GM and Ford and add onto your truck at the dealership. That's what we use to prototype all of these enclosures. Is our vacuum mold machine. We'll make a mold out of MDF or whatever else we have on hand.
Any material. I mean, anything that's hard that's not going to melt. You can do wood, you can do MDF. I mean, there's polymers. There's actually a foam we're using now. And in fact, the surround on the X, we actually prototyped all that in-house. And in fact, we're pulling stuff, you know. In fact, a month ago, we pulled a new one off for a different type of speaker where we're going to just different surrounds. We can actually mock them up in-house to see, you know, put them in the speaker and it's like, hey, is it going to work? Well, that surround material, that polypropylene, is basically modified, and it's called Sanaprene, which by modifying the polypropylene becomes softer, it becomes more like a rubber material. So even though it's rubber material, it's still got some hard agents to it, and we can actually form that softer material into surrounds with the shape of the vac former, but that's also how you can make speaker cones. So as we take that material, and you know, what happens to any material when you bend it? What happens right where it bends?
Well, it starts to lose its structural stability.
Exactly, it becomes weaker. So that's kind of a downside. The other problem with vacuum forming is, you know, some of the material is going to stretch. You know, it's got to stretch over and stretch down into the lower cavities. What happens when you stretch a material?
It gets thinner.
It gets thinner, it gets weaker, and it gets lighter. So you really don't have any control over that. You can control the shape of the cone, but you cannot control the thickness of the cone overall. You have no control over that. You have no control over, you know, the weak spots. So that's one of the downsides of a vacuum formed, you know, cone design. But here again, it's affordable, it's cheap. I mean, you can literally, you don't even need CNCs. You tool it up with routers or, you know, hand tools and make a vacuum form machine, and you could make a speaker cone that way. So the other way to make a polypropylene cone is called injection molding. And that's a completely different process. Same material, but that's where we take those little pellets and we heat them up into liquid, and then they're forced into a mold. Now, these molds, no longer can they be, you know, wood or MDF or, you know, foam or, you know, anything like that. Now they have to withstand the heat of, you know, superheated liquid plastic. So these molds are usually liquid-cooled polished stainless steel. And once again, liquid-cooled, polished stainless steel, that sounds like dollars right away.
Quite expensive compared to an MDF tool that you made in the shop, right?
Yeah, I mean, they can get a lot. In fact, you know, they can, literally, an injection molded cone is more than 20 times more expensive to produce than a vacuum formed cone.
And isn't that how we make most of our subwoofers, John?
In fact, almost every speaker we make has, with the exception of this one, this is not a vacuum formed cone. This one is still the non-pressed paper pulp cone. But every one of our woofers, every one of our mid-ranges, they all use an injection molded cone. So what we can do by using the injection molding process is we can control how thick the cone is. When you make that mold, you got two sides. You got a positive and a negative, and they've got to basically fit together, and the space in between them is where the cone is actually formed. The bigger that gap is, the heavier that material, because it deposits more material, it gets heavier. And the other thing it does is it makes it stronger. So we can take a speaker with a, you know, very complex design, and we need to add strength in some areas, but we don't want to add weight to it. We can actually take some of that material from another spot and move it over to where we need the strength. Or in like the original solo barracks where the cones had to be heavier for the parameters needed to make it play bass in a smaller box, we can make that cone thicker. Well, a couple advantages with making the cone thicker: it's obviously stronger, and of course it's got a lower resonant frequency, but then the disadvantage, anything that's heavier is going to be less efficient. So here's kind of a rule of thumb when building speakers, and just, I know we're talking about, you know, cone materials, but we might as well talk about the design of probably the most famous kicker speaker ever, the Solo Barrack. The Solo Barrack basically is where, if you've ever heard of isobarics, where you take two speakers and mount them face to face, and you wire one out of phase, you get kind of a push-pull. So what that did is it gave you twice the motor structure, but the same amount of cone area. So, but you had to power both of them with the same amount of power. So now you're doubling the power, you're doubling the number of speakers, and you're getting the same exact amount of output, but the box size is half. So when Steve decided to develop a speaker that was going to take the electrical parameters of those two speakers and make them into one, we had to have a very heavy cone. Well, at that time, injection molding was pretty new and, you know, not, you know, really readily available. And, you know, some of these molds were, you know, upwards of $100,000 per mold, because they took a lot of work. I mean, with CNCs, you know, getting so cheap, it's a lot cheaper now. But they had to make the cone as heavy as possible. In fact, with the original solo barrack, to really add more weight to it, it actually had a brass ring around the voice coil for weight, just to simulate the mass of another cone. Because the vacuum forming, at that time it was not really a very easy process to vacuum form something that was going to be thick enough to add that weight. So there's two different ways to make the cones. You got vacuum forming, and you've got injection molding. And once again, every one of our woofs, even down to our most inexpensive speakers, have an injection molded cone. It works better. It gives us a better looking cone. We can do a lot more creative shapes. They're going to be a lot stronger, and we can control the sound of the cone. So it gets kind of interesting. Grab me that QSS speaker right there, if you would.
I don't want to punch a hole through it.
I know. The problem is that these things are still magnetized, and that's a metal shelf, so it actually grabs on it. If you guys, this speaker unfortunately was discontinued. It had a very long run. This speaker started its life in about 2002, 2003 as the QSS, or the SS speakers, not the QSS.
It was the SS.
It was basically the same cone, and if you look at this cone, it's got this really nice kind of silver color and this texture. This is a carbon fiber. Now, carbon fiber is extremely strong and extremely lightweight, and it looks pretty cool too. So this has got a carbon fiber cone, but that's not all. This is what we call a tri-composite cone. Tri means three, right?
Yeah.
So on the back side of this cone is actually Kevlar. And we know Kevlar, bulletproof vest, is extremely light, extremely strong. So this has got a Kevlar backing, carbon fiber on the front, and there's a foam core sandwiched in the middle of that. Like we talked about, the foam can be very strong. So this is a very unique cone. In fact, we've got a patent on this cone material, and it's called a tri-composite cone, where we're trying to make as light and as strong of a cone as possible. So these things were pretty awesome. And when we get in tweeters, we'll talk a lot about this tweeter. There's 2 patents we have on the tweeter for this too, which is really cool. But that's another way to do cone material. You've got pure Kevlar cones, you have carbon fiber cones. What else have you seen for cone material?
Oh, man. Well, I know I've used
Put him on the spot now.
I've used tissue paper to fix some paper cones before.
Well, that's fixing them, but yeah, I think we've all done that, because, speakers come out of the box with holes in the surround right next to the screws, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not my fault ever.
Yeah, I've never put a screw gun through a speaker, never. No, if you do enough installs, it's going to happen. It's never fun, but, mistakes happen.
Well, let's see. We've talked about paper. We've talked about poly. We've talked about, what am I missing? Tritech.
Aluminum?
Aluminum, yeah, aluminum. We actually have some aluminum cones.
Yep, we actually, some of our there's aluminum is another material that, you can really control the thickness. Now, aluminum, we're not using injection molding on the aluminum. That would probably be really expensive.
That'd be so expensive.
But they do it. That's how engine blocks are made, cylinder heads. They're injection molded aluminum, but they are a lot more expensive, and there's really no need to go that far.
We're also not selling a $60,000 product. So.
Well, we could.
We could if we wanted.
If you add all the prices together. But there are companies that have made aluminum woofers. Eclipse made speakers, Aluminum Pro. They made aluminum cone speakers, and there's nothing wrong with aluminum. In fact, it's a neat material. The only disadvantage of a material like that, it can be light, it can be strong, you can make it do anything you want, but there's something called internal loss. Now, internal loss is the ability of a material to absorb vibrations. So we talk about this desk. This desk has high internal loss. If I tap on it, it doesn't ring. But if you tap on a bell, it rings. Very low internal loss. It keeps perpetuating that vibration. So that is something with low internal loss. And nice thing about aluminum woofer is it's such a low frequency, you really don't get the ringing effect. But depending on if you don't make it the right material and it's not dampened in some way, they can color the sound. Sometimes it's for the better. Sometimes that's designed into the speaker. And you'll be surprised at how many different materials sometimes we'll try to make cones out of, and different materials added to the polypropylene or whatever, just to change the sound of the speaker, to get it the way the acoustic engineer wants.
Well, a lot of times it's either to change the sound, like you said, or it can also change the rigidity of the cone if you're using multiple materials, like what we talked about, the QSS, and I think the dust cap on the L7X is poly. Right?
Yes, it is.
So, there you go.
Even a combination of products, mix and match. What's it, Granimals, back when never mind, you're too young to even know what that is.
Yeah, I'm 26, I don't.
I've got calluses older than that. So anyway, but yeah, so there's a lot of different cone materials. You know, aluminum's great, and like I say, we actually offer some aluminum cone, you know, smaller drivers. In fact, I think the PSM 3s, if I remember, if I remember right, those are aluminum drivers.
And the 2 3/4 inch and our Snowman pods are aluminum.
The KSMT 2504s. That's an aluminum cone driver, so it's not unheard of. And if you understand the properties of the material, just like anything else, if you know what it's going to do or what it's not going to do, you can actually incorporate that into the design and work it out to your favor. So cone materials, I mean, there is no magic bullet for anything, as I mentioned. Here again, we're using paper in one of our most expensive woofers. And then you get into, the rest of the woofers, which are all some form of polypropylene or modified plastic cone. And that's basically what polypropylene is. It's plastic. It's just a fancy name for plastic. And then Steven keeps changing the cameras on me. Actually, Ernie does, and Steven's running back and forth here.
They're trying to make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah. Follow the red dot. Follow the red dot. You guys following that back there? Jeremy's not. He's looking back at somebody else. Has he? Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Oh, well. So, and once again, guys, if you have any questions about anything, there's Ashy Larry. I see him up. All right. Thanks for joining, Ash. I was worried that we didn't have you here tonight because, we always got to have you on tap because you're always a lot of fun and quite the kicker collector. I mean, I've heard stories, and we got to get this guy on the show some night with his collection. Apparently, it's pretty unbelievable, and I can't wait to get there and see it in person myself. So,
it looks like we've actually got 10 questions started, John, if we want to go ahead and knock those out.
Oh, well, he usually puts them up on the screen for me. So, yeah, bring a question up here. Let's see what we got for questions. Here we are. So, Demetrius, will you ever make strappable amps? I want to use two CX600 together. We have made strappable amplifiers. We just don't currently make any strappable amplifiers. Here again, the half-bridge amps, you can strap them together.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing, I think any half-bridge amp is technically strappable. So.
And our old KX 2500 ones, they were strappable. And what strappable means, just in case you guys don't know, bridging is when you take two channels of an amplifier and you make one. So you take a 2-channel, make one, or a 4-channel, make it into 2-channel. That's bridging an amplifier. Strapping is when you literally have two physically separate amplifiers and you convert them to work one channel. One basically comes the push and the other one will basically become the pull. So you actually have to run signal to both of them. You have to have a link between them. So the KX 2500 ones are strappable, and our SX series, the 1250s, those were also strappable. I can't say we're never going to do it again. With the advent, the technology of what we can do with amplifiers now, looking at the old Warhorse, we're talking about an amp that, it's not even 10 years old, but, that was a very unique design, and that didn't even have an output section. It was a modified power supply only that was modulated to run through a filter to give you output. But with the advent of some of the technology, like our current, soon-to-be released Warhorse amplifier, I mean, you get an amp doing over 4,000 watts of power continuously out of something this big, there isn't really a huge advantage to strapping the amplifiers because power is so readily available. So can I say we're not going to do any more strappable amps? You never know. Never say never. We used to say we're never going to make head units. Now what do? Marine source units and media centers. Never say never because it will bite you in the butt. So, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any strappable right now, but, the proper design amplifier, you can get great power out of it. So, 25 hertz to life. Yep, we always got to hear from you. Thanks for joining in. Is the BT bass knob ahead of its time? Will Kicker bring it back? Why discontinue the BT bass knob? That's an interesting question. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm definitely going to chime in.
Well, they were really cool, but the batteries would die. And basically, a lot of my phone calls when I was in tech support was because of the Bluetooth bass knob. Either the battery would be dead or they wouldn't pair up to the amplifier properly because there was a lot of Bluetooth chatter in the area. So a lot of times what I would have to tell guys is, hey, if you're having problems getting this bass knob to pair, what you need to do is take and pull your car out of the bay, out into the parking lot, make sure all your guys in the shop have their phone's Bluetooth turned off, and try and pair again when there's nothing else in the area around. And most of the time that would get it to work. If not, then we'd have to have it sent in for warranty, obviously.
Which was few and far between, but it did happen because, Bluetooth, like anything, just like, radio frequencies, that can get cluttered. I absolutely love the Bluetooth bass knobs, and this is a great question. Thanks for asking that. I mean, it really was a love-hate thing. I mean, some people absolutely loved it, some people hated it. One of the problems I've seen were customers that didn't know that they were Bluetooth. They just called me like, oh, my bass knob's not working, it doesn't light up anymore. Did you replace the battery? What battery? So, I really was kind of disappointed when we went back on the KXMA 900.5, the Marine amplifier, which is still in that KX series lineup. That went back to a wired control. I really like the Bluetooth bass knobs, but we'll try it. And hey, if we get enough call for it, we always listen. If people keep begging for it to come back, it was really neat. And I really liked it personally because I'm old and forgetful. I mean, most of my installation career, we didn't have subwoofer dedicated amplifiers. We had 2-channel amps and we had a few 4-channels, but we didn't have remote subwoofer level controls. And guys, don't make the mistake of calling them a remote gain control. Many people call them a remote gain, but it really does not, and even the wired ones, they do not bypass the gain control on the amplifier. They allowed you to, wherever that was set with the gain, you could turn the bass down or back up to that point, so it was a remote level control, not a true remote gain control. But great question, and like I say, I was kind of sad when we went away from them, but I know there are a lot of people that, that were not quite so sad, but some people are on the fence. They could take them or leave it. It kind of depends on the customer and the usage. But the other kind of downfall of that, and I've run into this before, is if the amplifier that's paired to it is really buried in an install and the battery does die, and for some reason it doesn't pair up immediately. It should. When you put a battery back in, it's not supposed to lose its pairing. Then you had to access the front of the amplifier to pair it. So that was a little bit more of a challenge too.
Yeah, which if you guys don't know, those amplifiers had a little hinge on the front that was about 1.5 inches tall. And sometimes, like John said, that amp is buried really tight in there and you can't open up that hinge enough to get to the pairing button, which means you have to take the amplifier all the way out of whatever it was buried in just to be able to access your control panel.
So it was a neat idea and it may come back, things sometimes you do, and well, look at the L7, the original solo X woofer. I mean, it was pretty much ahead of its time, and it kind of went away for a while. And look, hey, it's back better than ever. So it's possible they'll come back. Just and here again, it depends on Bluetooth technology and how that all works. So I'm going to ask another question, and this is a question actually for Steven, sitting off camera over here. He's like, what? Where'd everybody go? We lost our studio audience, guys. Oh, see, they went to the bars. We got to hurry up. We got to catch up. They're going to
Yeah. All right, guys. Show's ending in 5 minutes. So.
But no, it was a lot of fun to have those guys on here, and like I say, hope it was a good laugh for some of you guys. But so back to the cones, and that wasn't a cone question. 25 Hertz Life. It was a remote bass question. But yeah, no problem. Juan Rogue says, are paper cones better suited for mid-range speakers? And here again, it doesn't really matter. Same thing with mid-range, you can still have a lot of cone flex. It depends on how the cones are designed, how strong they are. Regardless, a mid-range cone has got to be much lighter than a woofer cone because it's got to start and stop a lot quicker. But there's some incredible sounding, paper cone mid-ranges and some great poly and some carbon fiber. It just depends on what you like. There is no right or wrong. So you can't really say one's better than the other. We can say one's better suited for a particular environment. You probably don't want paper marine speakers.
No, definitely not. I know that my home audio speakers are made of paper at my house. They're old Altec Lansings. I've seen a lot of home audio speakers that are made of paper, but you don't have to really consider things in a home environment like you do in a car.
It's not as rugged.
Like heat, water, luggage rolling around in your trunk, hitting the cone, things like that. So it really, like John said, it's completely dependent on what your purpose for that speaker is as to what material is better.
Now, something else really interesting, talking about paper, and in fact, the bigger and heavier, paper woofer cones especially, if they don't have some type of treatment on them, if it's just literally paper and it's not got any type of coating, just humidity in the air can soak into that paper cone, and it will actually not only can eventually warp the cone, but it changes the sound. How can that change the sound? Well, you start adding more mass to the woofer cone, you tune it lower. And when you add more mass to it, it has less output. So it tunes it lower and it has less output. So what you do, you put more power to it to try to get that back, and now you can overdrive the speaker, actually burn up the coils from overdriving the amplifier. So it affects the sound quality too. So, a polypropylene cone in an automotive environment is going to give you consistent sound. It's not going to change with the humidity, the temperature, anything like that. Unless, of course, your cone shatters from being too cold, like in Alaska, then yeah, the temperature can change the sound to something really, really awful. So, cool. So that is probably not all the cone materials in the world. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more. I mean, I've seen wood.
Well, we haven't even gotten into tweeters yet.
Yeah, man, we may not get into tweeters. I don't think we're going to by the time we're done with this show. So we were originally going to try to mold woofers and tweeters and materials all in one, but I think we're probably going to end up doing a whole separate show just on tweeter construction, tweeter designs, tweeter styles, because there's a myriad of tweeters out there. Let's just call it that.
Myriad is an understatement.
So, and here again, there's no right or wrong. There's some really cool tweeter technologies out there, and it's so cool. And you can't have any one particular best or favorite, because each one has its own individual sound. Now let's talk about the shape of the cones. Not only square, obviously got square because you get 20 to 25% more cone area, but just even the shape of the cone, whether it's a dished-in cone or whether it's a concave cone or convex, or you've got spokes designed in the cone. The shape of the cone really doesn't have a lot to do with the sound. I mean, it has to do with the performance of the driver as far as the rigidity of the cone. And the only time the shape has any play is when you get more surface area, like you do with the L7s. But as far as the different textures in round versus square, but really isn't a lot of different sound between the cone materials of the speaker. Because when you're talking about a 40 hertz wavelength, if you got a little variance that are an inch or two apart, the percentage of 1 or 2 inches to 40 hertz, which is 28 feet long, I mean, you're talking less than 1%. So it is not going to affect the performance of the driver. And all the speaker's there to do, literally, whether it's a woofer, mid-range, or tweeter, it's there to move air. And as long as it does that correctly and without flexing and breaking up, I mean, it doesn't matter what the cone's made out of. Now, when you get into surrounds, that's a little different story. Are we ready to graduate to surrounds?
I think so.
You might as well. I mean, we don't have a huge amount of time left. And if you guys have registered for the show, I guess I forget to mention that because it's been a while since I've been on the show. We actually shut the registration off for the contest at 8 o'clock. So 15 minutes ago was your cutoff, guys. Sorry about that. But we'll get around to announcing the winners at the end of the show after we do a couple other fun things. And I'm kind of disappointed the guys left. We had some fun things we were going to do with them, but
that's okay.
Someone made that call, and I think they were getting kind of rambunctious, and they've been in this facility since 8 o'clock this morning.
We've had a long day. I mean, at this point, it had been 12 hours for everybody, and when you're stuck with the guys like me and John for 12 hours straight,
12 minutes is bad
enough. It can kind of wear on you. So,
all right. So surround materials. I mean, what kind of surround materials are out there?
We've got foam, we've got Sanaprene, we've got cloth. There's all different sorts of surrounds that I've seen. Paper, yeah, and 40s early paper cone speakers. Paper is the surround too. Yeah,
there's a lot. Here again, the whole particular purpose of the surround is to control the movement of the cone. I mean, it's not there to color the sound. It's not there to look cool, even though it does look cool. I mean, its number one function is to control the cone movement. The more the cone moves, the more you have to control that. So as far as, as what Jacob mentioned before, some of the earliest types of, surround materials was basically just an extension of the paper cone, which still kind of cool. They worked. They didn't have a lot of travel. But back, in the 40s and 50s and 60s when that was common, you didn't need a lot of travel. They weren't doing the high SPL, loud concerts like we're doing now.
Well, and if you guys really want to get into a trip, you can look up 1940s Philco speaker construction online, and you'll learn all about the field coils. You'll see pictures of those paper cones, and a lot of them have these weird ridged cones that are ridged all the way out from the center, all the way to the edge where it folds over into the surround. And even, I've taken apart some of the little 3-inch and 4-inch speakers that go in your tabletop radios, and the voice coil is like 1/4 of an inch in diameter. They're ridiculously small because there wasn't a whole lot of power going to the speakers in those days.
They didn't need a lot. They didn't know what they were missing by not having loud music back.
Exactly. If only they could see where we are today.
All right. So, yep. So, from paper, probably the next, and like I wasn't there, but I can only, guess that, foam was probably the next. Probably the next. I mean, I don't think rubber would have come out before that, but I mean, they're just different materials and different ways of doing it.
Well, John, when dinosaurs walked the earth, what were they making surrounds out of when you first got into the industry?
Whale skin. Never mind. So, yeah, the foam material is great because foam is a lightweight material, and once again, foam, if it's not squished flat, if it's not pressed, can be very durable. Now, surrounds have something, a gauging feature called durometer, which is the stiffness of the surround. So you can have the same thickness of material, but have a different durometer, which means it's going to be a different, strength in your stiffness. So that makes a big difference. And then, of course, the competition of the foam. I mean, early speakers, you'd start pulling some of these speakers out of some of these older cars, like the 90s Hondas especially, with the 6.5s in the rear deck. You'd pull the speakers out, and there'd be no surround left. I mean, the sun, the UV radiation just absolutely destroys the foam. Now, if any of you guys have been lucky enough, like the guests we had here tonight, to come up to our museum, we've got a really cool wing on the museum that we actually have the original KICKER products, from when they were made, back 1980. And, it was kind of sad. We pulled some of these products out of the boxes, which were brand new. Never been opened, never been out of the plastic, and they used passive radiators, and the passive was basically a foam passive with the surround all molded into one, that they were completely disintegrated. You couldn't touch them. They absolutely fell apart. The passives would be laying in the enclosures, the speakers had no surround left on them, and they'd never been used. They've never been out in the daylight. So that's one of the disadvantages of foam, is it's not as durable. So that's when the advent of, the rubber surrounds came out, and you've got butyl rubber, which is a very popular surround type of material. You have Santoprene, which, we use primarily Santoprene on most of our speakers because we got rolls of this stuff in back, various thicknesses, various stiffness, and we can actually prototype the same shape. We can prototype it in different, strengths, stiffnesses, and we can control the cone movement and change the sound of the speaker. We can do all that right here in-house because we do literally design everything about our speakers here in this building, and then we own all the tooling that makes it. But one thing that's really interesting, you see the L7s, and that was one of the things that made the original L7 work, were the ribs in the corners. And people want, that is the key that made that speaker work. That was the hardest challenge, was to make the corners of the speaker work. And we went through so many different versions. I mean, we went from 3 ribs to 5 to 7 and, up to 8, or 6. It just depends on the speaker and how big they were as to what worked.
Well, and I think we have a prototype L7 in the museum.
It's got 3.
It's got 1 on one corner, 2 on the other corner,
oh, yeah.
3 on one corner, and 4 on the other. And they're not even ribs; they're more dimples in the cone, like where somebody took a knife and pushed in just a little bit. And it's really strange to see.
So it's a concave rib, not
convex. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
So. And, that's especially court on, something that's got a really, really tight corner like this, or, it's not even really a corner. It is a radius. It is curved. The tighter the radius, the more that has effect. And if you notice, even like on our other speakers, even when you go to our comp woofers, which this is a comp C, it's actually the second series up, but the comp woofer, also we use a ribbed surround on the round speakers, and a lot of people say, oh, it just looks cooler. That's just for looks, and it really isn't. The Comp VR, I think it was 1998 when we introduced the first ribbed round speaker. And if you've ever watched an L7 with a strobe light, one of these days we need to pull up the movie that Kip and I did where we actually filmed one of these with a strobe light at high excursions. And even a round speaker, as the speaker pushes down, that surround drops down where you're trying to put more material into a smaller space. So it actually would tend to buckle. And if I know you guys out there watch some of those videos with the really tall surround round speaker, just as they move, you see that surround flex. That's what's happening. That material's got to go somewhere as that speaker pushes in. So it actually buckles upon itself. And that causes two problems. One, that's going to change the sound of the speaker. I mean, if you're worried about sound, if all you're worried about is moving air, making noise, it doesn't matter. But that surround, obviously, when it flexes, it's going to change the sound because it's creating its own, vibrations and energy. But more importantly, where it actually flexes and creases, it can weaken after a while. Mm-hmm. So I remember, back in the late 80s when I had my store, back before, we knew a lot about, audio, and I had a line of speakers that we were putting in large ported boxes, which sounded incredible, but back then we didn't have subsonic or infrasonic filters. So they pretty much, if you sent 5 hertz to it, it was going to try to play 5 hertz. So the problem with that was the lower frequency, the farther the speaker moved, and with that material, flexing as it moved up and down, you'd start to see slits cut, like from the center out. You'd see cuts in that surround, and eventually it would completely wear through. So that's where it was flexing, and that's one of the things that really helps this speaker sound better and smoother and give longer travel without coloring the sound are the ribs in the surround. And I remember, Kip and I sitting in his, I think he had a Ford Ranger truck, or maybe it was a little Escape, a little SUV, I can't remember, but we were listening to one of the first comp VRs with the ribbed Santa Preen surround, and we just kind of looked at each other like, something's different, and we realized that it was so much quieter. I mean, it was really amazing, what a difference you just put in the ribs. In fact, you got the Comp R in front of you. I mean, it's got pretty tall ribs on that Santa Preen surround. I mean, those ribs actually play a part in the performance and the sound quality. And of course, they look kind of cool too.
Well, even the CS speakers have rib surrounds.
Yeah,
Not even
that's
just
a rib
subwoofers.
foam surround. I mean, once again, it's that, of course, that 4x10 you have in front of you has got some pretty tight radiuses in the corners. Mm-hmm. So the surround material, you go from paper to, you got butyl rubber, you've got Santa Preen, you have NBR, which is natural butyl rubber. We use that in that QSS driver. And the QSCs, the coaxes, they're a natural butyl or natural rubber surround. It just depends on what the acoustic engineer is trying to get and what he's trying to accomplish and how he wants that speaker to sound. We've got some speakers up here with some different types of surrounds too. If you look at the
PS speaker?
Yep. So the PS speaker's got a treated cloth surround. So it's basically like a cloth that we put a material on, some type of rubber material, both to make it, air resistant, non-pervious to airflow, or impervious to airflow. So it seals the cloth material so air can't get through it. It actually protects it and allows it to hold its shape. So you've got treated cloth surrounds.
Well, you also got to consider water for those particular speakers.
Yep, like I say, it's got to be waterproof. So not only do you don't want water going through it, and it's kind of interesting. We just jumped to a whole nother subject. We stitch the surrounds or to the cones on these speakers. I mean, why do we do that? It's because our glue sucks, right? No, that's not we use the same glue everybody else does, but it looks better. It's never going to come off, but that's more of a cosmetic feature to make the speaker look a little bit beefier. And obviously, one of the real problems was with the Santa Preen and with the butyl rubber surrounds, especially butyl rubber, is they did not bond very well to. I mean, the rubber wouldn't adhere to glue very well, so it was not uncommon for speaker with a Santa Preen or a butyl rubber surround for the surround to come off the basket or off the cone. So in that instance, yeah, it's very important to have some type of mechanical bond versus a chemical bond. But when it comes to you putting foam on polypropylene, I mean, glue is going to work, but hey, we just want to make them look that much better and that much cooler. But in some of the instances with like butyl rubber, it's pretty important to make sure that they never come apart, especially in a woofer that's got high excursions and high pressures. But that brings us to another process, not necessarily a material difference, but a process difference, and that's going to be this marine woofer right in front of me. There's a couple unique things about this speaker. It uses a polypropylene cone and it uses the Santa Preen surround, but rather than these being made at two different times and then put together either via glue or stitched together. Stitched. Blech, can't even talk. I've been doing this too. They're actually what we call co-molded. So the mold actually takes both materials in liquid form and it puts them in the mold at the same time. And it's just like stirring, your chocolate. It mixes them together on the molecular level. So that allows this to have an incredibly strong bond because they're bonded molecularly. And you don't have to use stitching to rely on it holding itself together. Because stitching on a speaker like that is going to cause possible water leaks. So anytime you punch holes with a needle through something, you're going to cause a little bit of a water leak because the needle's got to be bigger than whatever material you're trying to jam through it. Whether it's some type of silk string, cotton, or if it's some type of polymer material like fishing line or whatever it happens to be. So that's why we do not stitch the marine woofers. We don't stitch the cone to the surrounds because we don't want that speaker to have any chance of water leaking through it.
Yeah, the best way to prevent a leak is to make sure it's not possible for there to be one.
So and here again, let's see, we covered paper, we covered polypropylene, Santoprene, we also covered rubber, cloth, anything else?
Guys, are we missing anything? Let us know in the chat if you guys think of any materials we haven't covered that we might discuss.
And here again, if there's any questions about any of the materials, and once again you start talking about surrounds. If you pick up that KMXL over there.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was reading. Somebody said to use shark skin for marine woofers.
Yeah, well, why not? So some of the speakers, if you look at the design of the surround on this one, I'll see if Steven can zoom in on this pretty easily. He's got a camera focus there. If Ernie will switch over to it. So this looks like it's got two surrounds on it, and that's actually what we call an accordion surround. So rather than having one big roll, this one's got two smaller ones. And Alpine's used this quite a bit on their speakers, and Electro Voice and PV. There's been a lot of people, and there's really no wrong design. This allows you to get a lot of travel. It keeps the surround, at a fairly low profile.
I think that one's also got an inner surround too, doesn't it?
Like down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually the dust cap. It looks like a surround or a spider as well. And the reason that this has got this type of spider underneath is to keep the water out of the speaker. Conventionally, a coax speaker, you've got a cone and then you've got a dust cap where you cut a hole in the dust cap or run a post through it for the tweeter. Well, it can't rub on the post because that would cause noise. But by doing that, you open it up for water, the capability for water to get into the driver. By basically taking another dust cap and making it like a surround so it will actually flex up and down, you can bond that to both the post that holds the tweeter and the cone. So now you can have a waterproof speaker that doesn't get water to the inside. It's a great observation there, Jacob. So there's a lot of, just really cool designs. And you've seen speakers that we basically use what we call a convex surround that actually comes from the outside. There's speakers that use surround that actually curve to the inside. And there really is no huge advantage or disadvantage. In fact, there is one advantage when it comes to a speaker that has the surround that actually goes out is convex. It's less likely to rub on the basket. So if the surround was actually curved inward, it gives you more relief on the top side because the surround will not move out as far and hit something, but it can now hit the basket. So you've always got to look at the engineering and design of the speaker. So there is no right or wrong, it's like in or out. It just depends on what you're trying to. You need clearance on the surface of the speaker more than you need travel, or you just, once again, it's all in the design of the speaker. So, JW, we got any other cool questions? We're coming up on the 8:30 mark. So, Living Loud with Andy. Welcome, Andy. Does a stiffer material always mean more loud? What do you think there, Jacob?
I'd say no.
And it doesn't.
Well, I mean, when we're talking efficiency, guys, and of course, more loud depends on a lot of things. It depends on the power handling of the speaker. But when you're talking apples to apples, same amount of power on a speaker with stiffer materials and heavier materials versus a speaker with lighter material and maybe less stiff materials, then that lighter speaker with less stiff materials is generally going to be more sensitive or a little bit more louder than the other one on the same amount of power.
Well, one thing that can happen, let's take this to an absolute ridiculous extreme. I always like pushing the limits. What if you had a rubber cone? So obviously that's not as stiff, and that is an instance where, yes, it wouldn't be as loud because the center would be trying to move and the outside would just flex so you wouldn't get the pressurization of the air. So in some instances, yeah, it absolutely can make a huge difference on the performance. But for the most part, most speakers, unless you get something that's really soft, but no one's going to design a speaker that's going to have, a cone made out of rubber. So for the most part, no. Until you get to the point where the cone flexes under certain conditions, and that's when, that may affect it a little bit. But for normal circumstances, if I take a round cone that I can push on the edges and bend a little bit versus one that's a lot stiffer, you're probably never going to notice a difference if they're the exact same weight as far as output and SPL.
Weird idea I just had.
Oh,
Just
here it
completely
comes.
zoned out. But what if you went to Walmart and got some of those 12-inch tires that you can use for lawnmowers and kind of cut it up and use that material as a surround on a really heavy-duty speaker?
You can. Be nothing to stop you from doing it. It'd just be a very heavy surround, and once again, the weight of the surround is going to affect the control. But that's essentially what surround is. It's just a half turn on, rubber tire, used for surround material. So
you guys have homework. I want to see that on the internet sometime.
I want to see them do it out of a truck tire. Great. What other questions we got? Got Sam Law in the house. Good seeing you, Sam, up there. There's Baba. All right. So problem is that they're all there still at Stillwater, late as it is. Yeah, it can be late. So Ashy says, if it's a non-pressed cone, how does it get its shape? You might have missed that in the beginning, Ashy. And how it gets its shape is they actually have a mold that they actually spread the pulp on the mold and let it dry. So that's how you get a non-pressed paper pulp cone. The pulp is actually just spread on a mold, and then they'll cut it out or, the shape that they want.
I want to say, I could be wrong about this, but I want to say it's a really fine kind of metal mesh, and that's sometimes how you get that stippled feeling on the cone where it sets down on the mesh, and then the backside looks more like the paper
It's
pulp
rough,
you would expect. So I think that's how they do it, is they set it on that mold, like John said, but I want to say it's like a mesh material that they set it on.
And it can be, and that also helps allow some of the moisture to get out of that pulp, because it is just a wet, just a mush, basically like a really fine oatmeal. The other thing, about that non-pressed pulp cone, I don't think you guys can see this, but if you ever have looked at it, this cone on this is about 3 millimeters thick. So it is a very, very thick non-pressed paper pulp cone. I worked for Kenwood years ago, and our HQ woofers were non-pressed paper pulp cone too. And they were really rough on the backside. So it's different forms of manufacturing, but there's no right, no wrong with any of them. So good question, Ashy. What else we got up here? Who's got another good question? Stu. All right, Stu, welcome to the show. I like getting your emails, so thanks for sending those to me. How about the cone shape? How does that affect the performance of the speaker? It really depends on, where the shape is. Obviously, if the shape allows the speaker to flex, it's probably not going to be as good a performance. But that's the whole key of the cones. They're designed to ensure they flex as little as possible. So the shape can make a huge difference. Just a flat, well, here again, let's get ridiculous here. We got a shape here, which is a piece of paper. That has no structural strength whatsoever. But let's change the shape of this piece of paper ever so slightly. So let's put one bend in it. It's much stronger. So that's kind of the art of cone design, is where you put the braces, and this bend actually is part of the brace for this material. It does make that a lot stiffer, but you see, it's actually flapping like wings. So we would want to put bracing this way as well to keep that, and as you see with all of our speakers, they got bracing both, radially coming out from the center, which adds strength to that cone where they really need it the most. So yeah, the shape of the cone can play a huge role, and that's the whole point of the shape of the cone, is to reduce the cone flexing as much as possible. So good question, Stu. Thanks for that.
Just to elaborate on that a little bit more, as you guys know, our L7s give you about 20% more surface area, which means you can move 20% more air. If you have a certain shaped speaker that is comparable to another speaker of the same shape, like I don't know, I've seen some brands make triangle subwoofers once upon a time. So I'm sure if you take a square 12-inch subwoofer and compare it to a triangular 12-inch subwoofer, the triangular woofer is likely going to have a lot less output than the square woofer. But I've also seen some brands make oval subwoofers. I don't remember what brand that was, but I guess they were relatively popular.
There's probably one right in front of you there.
Yeah, it's a speaker, but I'm talking like I don't remember what brand made those.
Polk Audio made like a 7 by 10 inch oval woofer. There are a lot of companies that make oval woofers, and it's just about getting the maximum amount of movable cone area in that particular space. So that's all it is. That's all a speaker's there to do is move the maximum amount of air.
Boston. That's what I was thinking of.
The Boston Acoustics. In fact, that was a great speaker. And if I remember it, that was actually reconable as well. You could actually rebuild that one. Not as easy as you can this one, but if I remember right, I think I remember someone mentioning something about that. But it's, here again, the shape of the speaker can play a lot, but the whole purpose of an acoustic engineer, the mechanical engineers, are designed the cones out of materials that do not flex and do not color the sound. And sometimes they use different materials. I've seen paper cone speakers that were just a flat, normal paper cone, and what they did is they put basically polypropylene or plastic ribs. They glued them onto that paper cone. And if you grab that speaker right next to that oval woofer that you have right next to you that you hadn't seen, that one is actually tapered as the cone comes in versus straight and flat, and that adds strength as well. So even though that doesn't have a lot of shape to the cone, it does have a radius as it goes in, and that will add a lot of strength to that flat cone as well. So it's all about the design of the speaker and how they do it.
While we're taking things to an extreme, I think Dayton Audio sells just some raw transducers that you can buy on like Parts Express, and you can essentially stick those to any surface and turn whatever you stick it into a speaker.
And those are really cool.
So I've seen some guys make panel speakers, which are literally a foam square panel, and stick those to the back of it, and they sound really good, apparently. I've never heard one in person, but I think there's a YouTube video that says like the best sounding speaker ever type thing, and that's all subjective. But
so now what's the cone material made out of?
Foam.
There you go.
And he also tested it with cloth on the front side of it, a cloth layer. He tested it with a thicker foam, a thinner foam, triangular, circular. He did all these different things and recorded how it changed the characteristics of the sound. So if that's a rabbit hole you really want to go down, there's a good YouTube video on it where somebody uses those transducers and makes his observations on video.
Well, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna go down the rabbit hole a little bit because you just got me off on a tangent subject. Those are really cool too. Those transducers. Put them on glass.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Put them on windows. In fact, there's a company, I cannot remember the name, I just saw this a couple weeks. They make some speakers, they're basically invisible. You actually put them in the wall, and they literally are transducers that you put in the wall and you literally drywall over, and they become a speaker. So there's some really neat technologies out there. And in fact, one of my good buddies up in Canada, Bryce Lewis, has got a motorcycle helmet that he put those transducers on the helmet. So fiberglass. That became a speaker. And he said that with the noise canceling technology of some of our Cush headphones, with the noise canceling technology and those, he said it is an amazing sounding experience. So yeah, there's no end to what you can do. It's just, what's practical, what's affordable, and what's, easy to work with. So we got another question. We're getting closer to where we probably need to wrap this up. And like I said, we already drove off all of our guests here. So I guess they're getting a head start at the bar. So got any other good questions, JW? Steve Barber, how you doing, Steve? Always good to hear from you. What is your favorite sounding cone material? I've always been partial to the paper cones. They're just warmer to me, and there is no right or wrong. Paper is a great material. It's just not, once again, quite as durable as some of the poly materials, but we used to have a regional sales manager, still one of my good friends to this day, that we'd be driving down the road, and he'd hear someone banging down the road, and he's like, yeah, that sounds like paper cone Rockford woofers. It's like, you can't tell that from here. But he thought he could. But yeah, there's absolutely, whatever's best for you, whatever sounds good. And, and we're going to, not that we're going to go into tweeters tonight, but that's kind of the old thing that you get into with, tweeter materials. A silk dome is be smoother than a hard dome, and some people like the hard dome sound versus the smoother sound. So there is no right or wrong. If that's what you like better, go for it. I mean, I honestly don't care what the cone material's made out of, as long as it sounds good and long as it's durable. So all right, so we're going to wrap this up. Let's just do one more quick question, then we're going to wrap this up. We're going to give some stuff away and go through our questions and fails. And I think we only had 2 questions rounded up for the guys, but so we were going to ask them. But anyway, Larry Keller says, Kicker, And the future of cones made with graphene. He read my mind, so we're not going to talk about that till we get into tweeters.
You kind of implied it, you know.
I know, but I didn't say it. So thanks for reading into that, Larry. Good call, good move. So yeah, we'll talk more about that when we get into tweeters on another episode, because obviously we're not going to get it tonight. So cool. So that is awesome, guys. Once again, thank you guys for the questions. If you think of any questions, support@kicker.com. You can reach out. You guys know, anytime you got questions, reach out to us, or, tune into the show and ask questions. Even if we get on another show, any questions you ask, if we get a chance, we'll answer them on air. So now time to go into the usual things. And I'm going to pull up, and you don't need to pull this up on the screen there, Ernie. I'm just going to read off my laptop since I didn't print them out, because we're going to do some other stuff. But we're going to start off with questions. Questions of the day was, all right, one of the two questions that I have in front of me, you got to figure out a third one that you've had come up since you were in the tech department.
Man, that's right. We were going to ask those guys.
We were going to have some fun with our guys, but they left us. Apparently we weren't entertaining enough. At least 131 of you are still here. So first question is, I have got a KICKER 4-channel amplifier with front and rear RCAs running to the amplifier. All my speakers are playing. I can adjust all the crossovers and everything on the amplifier, but my fader does not work. Any idea what the problem may be? Do I need to send the amplifier in for repair, or is there something I can do? What do you think, Jacob?
Well, it sounds like he needs to try pushing the fader button.
Yep.
He's got 2 pairs of RCAs going into the amp, and there's no front to back fader. Maybe his fader button is pushed in, or he's done some weird shenanigans upstream with Y splitters and turned his 2 into 4.
Or bridging, but yeah. So all of our multi-channel amplifiers, from the 4 channels, the 5 channels, 6 channels, and the 8 channels, we now have an 8-channel marine amplifier. You can get signal to power all the channels in the amplifier with just a left and right input. The fader button, if the fader button is on, it needs signal into each of the RCAs. If it's off, it'll take the signal from the amp 1 input and send it to amp 2. So that's probably what you have going on. Just look on the end of the amplifier for a fader button, push it and try it again. I think you're going to find that you get your fader back. So next question said, I've got one of your KICKER self-powered down-firing subwoofers. It sounds good, but it doesn't sound right. If I disconnect one of the speaker leads, I get a lot more bass response. Is there something wrong with the subwoofer? That's another pretty easy one. What do you think's wrong with that one?
He's got one of his inputs wired out of phase in relation to the other one.
Exactly. And especially with mono amplifiers. I mean, if you have a stereo amplifier, it's not quite as detrimental because the speakers move in different directions. But if you've got a subwoofer amplifier, a mono amplifier, and you have a signal coming in, it's positive on one side, negative on the other, they are going to cancel out. So you will lose all your output. Another way to test this, if you have that issue, you want to know if you have the issue, and same thing if you've got 2 subwoofers, that are playing side by side, you want to know if your polarity is correct. Polarity means, are they both moving in the same direction? In polarity, out of polarity. Just move your balance left or right all the way. If you get more bass with it all the way left or all the way right, you have a polarity issue. So that's a pretty easy one. So what do you think? We're going to let you pull one out of the vast bank that is called your brain of questions. What have you run into when you were in the tech department for questions?
Yeah, so here's a fun one. Well, since we were talking about surrounds and ribs on the surround, one time one guy emailed me and said, hey man, I built a box and I put a subwoofer behind the seat in my pickup truck, and I went back there to get some tools out of the back or something, and he said, I noticed the ribs on my sub are gone. Are they supposed to go away like that?
Gone?
They were gone, and what had happened was his subwoofer was rubbing up against the back of the seat, and all of the ribs had worn down to be flush with the rest of the surround of the subwoofer. And some of them had actually worn through into little pinholes in the subwoofer. So if you guys are ever installing something that close to the back of the seat, make sure you use a grill or at least test for clearance before you go run it full tilt.
Yeah, and that's the other advantage of, a stronger cone. If it does hit the back of the seat, it should never hit the back of the seat. That's never a good thing. So, all right, I've got 8:46 Central Time. Ernie's already reading my mind. He's pulled up my laptop. We now have one of my favorite sections, fails. And we started out doing 3 of, each of these pictures, but I always put in more than 3 because there's always so much. We just got to show you guys. So what's wrong with this picture, Jacob?
It looks like the classic grounded it to the trunk lid, which does not make any sense to me. He could have used less wire and gotten a ground to the actual car itself.
Well, not only that, the trunk lid isn't welded to the body. There's
Right,
that flexible joint there.
Yeah.
So not a good thing to do. So I think we've definitely figured out that, yeah, grounding them to hoods, trunks, and stuff, and doors is never a good thing.
And I don't even think his ground point is sanded. It looks like it's
No,
still
it doesn't look.
painted.
Well, can we do this? Let's see. I don't see where it's going to let me make that bigger. So I think.
I don't know where
Oh,
this.
here we are.
there you
Here's
go.
the
Zoom
plus.
right
So
there.
let's see if we can zoom in.
Man, you can read those numbers
Nope.
now.
Now, if you look at how rounded off that bolt is, it's sanded in the wrong spot.
It looks like you tried both of them because the other one's pretty rounded off
Yeah,
too.
I think there's been some things done to this vehicle that none of us want to talk about. So, yep, definitely. That's a fail. If that's one of your fails, guys. Sorry about that. This is one that good old Ernie sent to me today.
It's good for 100 amps, right, John?
I have never seen bottle caps used for fuses before.
I've seen coins.
Yeah, I actually got one of those pictures. I don't think I put it in this one. But the guy stacked up like 6 pennies, to use as a fuse. But yeah, bottle caps and rusty ones at that. And, they're probably some awful skunk beer bottle caps.
If he used the terminals to sand down the bottle cap by wiggling it back and forth, then maybe we can cut him a little bit of slack there. But sometimes you can work off the rust by moving things back and forth.
Yeah, we're going to work this one right off the screen with that. That's your free air woofer installation.
Free air subwoofers right there.
Now, how classic is that? I mean, it's using rope.
Well, okay.
And it looks like
the
through the
ratchet
baskets,
strap-
they're ratchet straps.
The ratchet strap is pushing on the backside of those cones.
Yeah, this was probably done by Nurse Ratchet, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah, definitely a fail. I can imagine that there's very little bass response.
Somebody told him that free air sounds the best.
Ernie says that wins the award for the biggest fail ever. And you're probably not far off.
I might have done that 7.5 years ago before I started here. So
Well, we've all done things we haven't been proud of. So, next one. Here's another one that I got sent by one of our longtime viewers. And
looks like a capacitor, maybe.
yes. What in the heck? I don't know if they're relying on the tension from the screws to pierce the insulation, because they do not appear that it was done any other way. And the fact that the black wire is just cut off on the other side of the screw.
Somebody cut the wires to remove it from the vehicle and keep it as a trophy.
That's possible too, because it does look like the red wires are cut off there too. But yeah, look at all the scale on the top of the capacitor.
John, I think we might have missed something. They're saying to go back and look at the dust cap of the speakers in the previous picture.
Okay.
Maybe we can zoom in
That
on
one?
that. Yeah.
All right, let's zoom in. What dust caps? Good catch.
Man.
Dust caps have left the building, folks. Well, the wires that you see by the dust caps are the tinsel leads. So that's part of the speaker construction. But yeah, I'm not sure, what's going to the terminals on those at all. I mean,
I want to hear that so bad.
yeah, well, you probably won't, since it's so infinite baffle. All right, here's another great one. Round speaker in a square hole.
Well, kickers take square cutouts, right, John?
Yep, and that is a kicker speaker, but obviously you're not going to get a very good isolation between the front and rear of that speaker. You really have no baffle at that point. And, I'm going to point out the fact, as bad as that is, I mean, it's not even like squared up in the hole. The logo's kind of off, about.
Now, the good news is this is easily fixable. If you
buy an L7.
Yeah, I mean,
that would fix it.
So you can either do that, or if you've got the tools and you built that box yourself, which, I'd be surprised if you did and made the square cutout for a round speaker, but you can make kind of like an adapter plate to go over that square cutout and put the round speaker in there. So it's not completely lost. There's something you can do there to fix it.
If you have a little bit of ability, a little bit of woodworking tools.
Yeah.
That's going to conclude our fails. Let's go to our cool install section, and then we'll go to the giveaways. So, Here's a really cool install I came across using that looks like the, I can't tell if they're CVX or because of the red lights are just kind of VRs.
But you're right, it's hard to tell.
Nice little Chevy bow tie logo in the center. I assume this is a Chevy, either an Impala or a Monte Carlo or something, but just a nice clean install. The thing that kind of caught my eye, besides the cool red LEDs, is the fact it's got the capacitor mounted between the ports.
Mm-hmm. Oh. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat idea, something different. I've never seen anyone do that, which is why I always like cool and unique things, and just a really nice, clean install, and just kind of something different. So I kind of brought that in there. And this is from our friends at SMS Car Audio. These guys, this is a power bar for a Jeep.
That's neat.
Yeah, so we have 4 KMXL 8s, 4 KM 4s. And then we've got 4 8-inch LED rings.
Wow.
So what a cool sound bar that is. And get right over your head, man, that thing's got to be incredible.
Somebody put a lot of work into that.
If you guys follow SMS Car, these guys do a lot of really cool installs. So look them up on TikTok or Facebook and check out some of the other installs because they do a great job.
John, before we move on.
Oh, we moved on, so never mind.
Well, it doesn't relate to that picture, but I wanted to say it before I forgot. Somebody mentioned that ramen and superglue, to build things out of ramen and superglue. What if we made a subwoofer enclosure out of ramen noodles and superglue?
Why not? It'd be a challenge.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure how strong that would be. There's going to be one problem that OSHA's going to be unhappy if we do that. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with the fumes of a lot of superglue. I will tell you one thing, just as a safety. Not that we're, all about safety, but safety is important. Never grind super glue in a concealed environment.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
I've done that actually working for Kicker, using super glue to, put and having to grind it with a sander.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, the fumes, it about knocked me out. It is awful. So, yep, never do that. So, all right, Ernie, let's go back. We got just a couple more cool installs that we got to do, and then we'll get into the giveaway, and we might be right at about 9 o'clock. So let's go back to the laptop if you don't mind, Ernie. So this is a really cool Can-Am. Look at the subs on the back.
TVs.
Yep. That is a great looking install with our Marine 6.5s up front. It's clean. We're talking with these guys that did this install, and I wish I could remember who it was. When you guys send pictures to me, and please send me pictures and send them to Bill. If you have any way of putting your store name or anything in the pictures so we don't get them lost. Unfortunately, I forgot to take notes of who sent this to me. They sent me several pictures of this vehicle. What a really cool install. Really like it. But yeah, that's a great one. And then here's a great one. I think this is one of Stu's installs. This is, once again, really clean behind the seats of the truck. And one of the things that I really like about this, if you notice this, the accent, trim, but if you notice that the top and bottom ones go clear off the enclosure into the end panel. And then the center one is actually 2 pieces. So just kind of some cool little details just to change it up. But this is another cool one. 4 L712s in a pontoon boat, and there's a nice vent on the side.
They even match the material for the seat.
Yep, so that's pretty cool. You can get a lot of bass out of that, so that pontoon boat ought to rock. But this is one I wanted to bring up because this was such a cool install. We featured this one in our booth at SEMA. I think this was the last year before COVID. This was actually done by the late Mike Glavalli. He was one of the best airbrush artists in the world. Unfortunately, we lost him not even a year after this was at the scene. And our good friend Tim Bailey did the install. He was installer of the year. They do absolutely incredible work, and this car is just, you talk about details and astounding craftsmanship. Tim did such a cool job on this car. Even with the speakers in the doors, you can see the crossovers for the QSS.
Mm-hmm. There's no ramen noodles and Bondo in that car.
No, not at all. I've been to their facility. They're actually in Vancouver, Canada, right north of Seattle. It's just such once again, the rear deck with the QSS 6s and tweeters, just an absolutely beautiful install. So thanks for all your hard work on that one, Tim. And Mike, I hope you're looking down and appreciating your beautiful car. And I do know the car has been taken over by someone else, and they're actually doing some cool stuff with it. So it's still on the show circuit. So what a great car. So that's going to conclude our fails, questions, and installs portion. So I guess we're down to giving some stuff away. So
Yeah, that's usually what we do at the end, I think.
why don't you go ahead and, Bill, if you want to pull up our third place winner, and I'm going to get out my cheat sheet of notes. The third place is going to win the green 50th anniversary tumbler, the Kicker koozie, and the Unmasked Live t-shirt. Bill Frog, who do we have for the winner?
Stephen G. from Ohio.
Not Stephen B. from behind the camera, but Stephen G. from Ohio. So congratulations, Stephen. Watch for the email from Bill Frog. He's going to want your name, your address, your phone number, and obviously your shirt size or your girlfriend's or wife's shirt size, whoever you're going to give the shirt to. Or, once again, if it doesn't matter, if you're just going to put it up on the wall, let him know that too, so he knows he can send you something that'll frame well. Thank you again for registering for that, and congratulations on the win. I will read the second place winner, which is the EB400s, the koozie and the t-shirt. That is going to be, drum roll Bill please, number 2 is Ken A. from Texas. So Ken, if you're from Texas, if you're from Dallas, you're 3.5 hours. Drive on up here tomorrow and claim your prizes. We'll give you a tour of the facility. So, and once again, you guys are always welcome 8 to 5 Monday through Friday to come up to Kicker here in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and see this amazing facility we have. So Ken A., watch for that email from Bill Frog, and congratulations on the win on that, and thank you for registering and watching. And that's going to bring us to the grand prize winner, and who is that going to be? Jacob and Bill.
Let's see. Cassie S.
Cassie S.
Hey, I recognize that name.
Yeah, and now she owes us cookies or muffins. She's always doing something with food, and that is awesome.
That's the real reason why you got first place.
Yeah, it's because of the food references, because we are kind of foodies around here. So, Cassie, congratulations for winning. I know it looks like we're we're scrolling through the stream. I don't know if there's anything else that Jeremy was going to pull up there, but once again. Oh,
you almost
yeah,
forgot about me. What's
Good
going
grief.
on, guys?
How can we forget Andy? Everybody stay tuned because Andy's got a special announcement. Man, we were having so much fun. Andy, welcome to the show. I've got to put my earphones in so I can hear you. I've been slacking. I bet you thought we were never going to get to you.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. How do I sound?
Ooh, loud.
Hey, I can hear you.
Loud and clear. Welcome, Andy. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good. Happy to be on the show. And, man, the information we're going to talk about tonight is going to be kind of awesome for the guys. I mean, you guys covered everything with subwoofers, but, man, giveaways. People love those, too.
Got to have those.
Awesome
What
stuff.
do you think?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? We love to give stuff away, and you've done a good job giving stuff away. What do you got going on? What's your thoughts for this whole thing?
Honestly, I mean, anything Kicker would be cool to get from you guys, between the bullfrogs to the cups to the t-shirts. But, I mean, to get someone's attention, I would say maybe a complete Kicker system. Head to toe.
Why not?
Yeah, that sounds
Would
like
you
a
look
great
at
idea.
that?
So there it is. Wow, we just pulled that up spur of the moment. Now we've actually been working on this with you for a little while now, so it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to do this and to feature this on your show. Tell everybody how they can register to win this, because I don't even have the details of how long. Well, actually it says there are 21 days left, so you got 3 weeks to register.
Yes. Enter at kicker.com/giveaway. I think we will be drawing the winner when I will be live at Stillwater. So you guys got a few weeks, but enter away, man. And an entire Kicker system, and John's going to help you guys, piece it together. Or if you already know what you want, $1,500 for a complete Kicker system, and it's going to sound great. That's just awesome. And thank you guys. They're doing this because I just hit 5K subscribers. I'm like, hey, let's do something for the guys.
Well, congratulations on 5K
Yeah,
on your
congrats.
channel. That is awesome. And that actually happened last week, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we actually hit it live Friday during the show. It was epic. It was awesome.
Oh, nice.
And yes, you guys will also be getting a care package with Living Loud with Andy swag, cup,
See, that's
mouse
cool.
pad,
Oh, man. That's
duffel
awesome.
bag.
Thanks, Andy.
Absolutely. No, thank you guys. It's the least I could do. I'm like, we got to do them right. And I appreciate you guys and Kicker as a whole, John, Jacob, everybody at the Unmasked crew, man. You guys knock it out of the park with these shows. And I'm just the after show, or just Living Loud with Andy. And I appreciate
You're
you guys
never
so much.
just the after show.
Yeah,
Don't sell yourself short. You're the frosting on the cake. Let's call it that.
I like that. I love me some
Sometimes the
frosting.
frosting's the best part. It causes more calories and But anyway, no, that is absolutely awesome. I kind of like that Living Loud with Andy mouse pad.
Yeah, that's cool. I need a mouse pad for my house.
Yeah,
so.
I've actually
You
got.
guys can enter. It can't be rigged, so you guys can
Well,
enter.
No, I don't know about that, man.
yeah, that would be rigged. That
Imagine
would be
if we
fair.
won.
But I've actually got one of the original Kicker mouse pads with the red, black, and white logo that I use. And there's probably people out there that would kill for that right now. And
What is it? Rigid, like a?
No, it's actually like the wetsuit material, whatever that is.
Oh, so it hadn't like dried out or anything.
No, it's actually still functional. I mean, it still works. So I've been using that for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years or so.
They go the mileage.
Yeah, is the design still there? Have you worn it off with the
No,
mouse?
it's pretty dirty though. It's still, it's still flexible, but it's definitely had its share of use. So, as always, Andy, you do such a great job for us. Why don't you plug your show just a little bit here?
Yeah, we go live every Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, and Kicking It with Andy every other week, every other Tuesday that you guys aren't doing the UnMasked show, and you guys can do the same, get the same giveaway stuff you get here, and it's a win-win. It really is. And got a great group of guys watching on YouTube. We stream everywhere, Facebook. Not Instagram yet. Hopefully one day. That's a great platform to do it on. But Twitter and Twitch, but mostly YouTube. And we're here to have fun, learn, just like you guys are doing tonight on the UnMasked show, talking about different cone materials, surround materials. I try to dive into topics that I understand, so I can give you guys some solid knowledge, and we have fun along the way. I mean, we are just listening to music and listening to it a little louder than the average person. So, we are the minority, but it's an awesome group that we have, and I love doing it, and love your guys' show. It really started mine.
Well, I'm especially looking forward to next week's show, so we'll leave it at that.
Speaking of which, you want to join me next week? I think that would be kind of perfect, actually.
I would love to. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you guys want to heckle me live, you can do it on Living Loud with Andy next week. So I'll be tuning in live via remote, so that's kind of live. So
live and direct
live.
as you're going to get.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andy, thanks for hanging out. And I'm sorry we took so long to get to you. I get on a roll up here, and I just get into overdrive.
Hey.
So.
You do great.
Go take care of the
me.
family, and I'm going to miss you here when you come to the facility. I'm sorry, I will be on the other side of the planet, but I know it's going to be great having you here, and I know these people will take care of you as they always do. So, Andy, my friend, take care, have a good night, and we will talk to you very, very soon. So
Awesome,
take care.
Andy.
Thank you, guys.
So that would be it. We're about 9:04. We didn't do too bad on time, did we? I can't read what it says up there. I got a camera blocking it. You're going to have to. Steven's writing all kinds of notes up here, like "Shut up, get off."
Steven's like, I want to go home. John.
I can't see what that says up there. Well, no, I can read the one that says it's time to let Andy go. He's been hanging on forever. The other one that says, "Tell Andy Kid rocks to kick rocks." Okay, there it is. See, he writes it so small I can't read it without my glasses. So, guys, have a great night. Thanks again for tuning in. Remember, like and subscribe. Tune in 2 weeks from tonight when we'll be having another great show. I think we're going to have all kinds of acoustic demonstrations with Aaron Surratt and Aaron Malin.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what the schedule looks like.
I think that's it. So tune in for that. Guys, have a great night. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you had some fun. Hope you learned a little bit. And hope it makes you prompt up, get some new questions. Ask away. Support@kicker.com. So take care, guys. Have a good night. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Have a good one.